Hey everybody, it's Paul Carruthers here, the communications manager for MotoAmerica. We're back with another of our weekly podcasts, Off Track. I'm joined as always by Sean Bice, and today we have a special guest, Sean. In keeping up with our old guy, I guess you could say old guy month, we've got Eric Bostrom going to be joining us today on our podcast, and I know you go way back with Eric like I do, and remember those days when he was a big part of the AMA Superbike Championship.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, we don't, in our minds, we don't seem to ever age. And, I still think of Eric as well. I think about him as a twin sport rider, even, when he was back racing in that series and had started out. But it's hard to believe that the time has passed. But hey, I want to mention one other thing too. We're going to Road America next week.
I know, I can't wait. I was talking to Wayne Rainey on the phone this morning, and he's like, "When's the last time we raced?" And it's like, what, September? I mean, we had the barber test, which was kind of cool because we at least got to see everybody, and it made it at least seem like it was this year. And then of course all hell broke loose with the virus, and we've been put on hold. But yeah, we get to start up next weekend, and I'm actually looking forward to getting on the airplane and flying to Wisconsin and going through the whole drill there. It'll definitely be different. As everybody knows, or as most people know, we're doing this first one without fans. So that in itself will make things a little bit different. It'd probably feel a little bit more like an official test than a race because of the fan factor. But either way, I mean, as we've seen in the past, Road America always has incredible races, and fans or no fans, I think we can expect the same thing, which is obviously going to make for very good television and also our Moto America Live Plus. So there's going to be plenty of options for people wanting to watch the races. We've also announced today that the Supersport races, both of those are going to be shown live on MAV TV, which is our new TV partner that is going to handle all the Supersport races this year. But it's kind of cool that to get this thing started, we're going to start it off right with live races. So yeah, plenty of. If I wasn't going, I definitely know I'd be parked in front of the TV all weekend. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, I get to avoid that human petri dish that is an airplane, and drive up. This is the one that I drive to, the furthest one that I drive to. It's about an 8 or 10 hour drive, but well worth it, especially in this age. I'll be able to stay in the car and get up there safely. So it'll be interesting. I actually have something related to this that I want to run by Eric when we bring him in here. So why don't you go ahead, Paul, and then I'll kind of ask Eric this to start with, I think.
Most of you probably know what Eric Bostrom's done in his career, but if not, I'll give you a short little sample. But he raced in AMA racing for a long time and was very successful. Raced in basically every class that they had. 1998 Formula Xtreme champion, 2001 Supersport champion. In 2001, he finished second in the Superbike Championship to a guy named Mat Mladin. In 2002, he finished second in the title chase to a guy named Nicky Hayden. So he didn't win a Superbike title, but he came very close on 2 occasions. He's also 10th on the all-time Superbike win list with 15 wins. That ties him with Freddie Spencer. Uh, you know, Eric, I have to tell you, I wish I would have known this when we had Ben on a couple of weeks ago, but you're actually a more successful AMA Superbike racer than Ben because you had a lot more victories.
I would have appreciated you reminding him. Hey, it's good to have some human interaction here, and I'll take any shot I can to kind of get at Ben. So that's great. It's a brotherly competition thing.
Let's start with that brotherly competition thing. That had to have been something that's been forever, right?
Forever. I mean, especially for me. Like Ben had a couple of years without it. So
Right.
being the older brother, it's been amazing.
Eric,
Yeah, Sean.
go, Eric, I was just going to say, is that a case? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask. You mentioned about you're the younger brother. Obviously, we know that. Do you compare? I've never asked you this before, but they always said Nicky's talent and prowess came because he was always chasing Tommy around. So is that kind of your situation? You were chasing Ben around?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been asked a lot, like, how do you get faster? And it's like, well, you need, you rise to the talent you're around. And ultimately, like, just chasing Ben wouldn't have been enough. We would have kind of backed off to a comfortable limit, whether, because there was no one else to push us beyond that. So, that said, like, some of the biggest races I've ever won have been against no one other than Ben in the backyard, and we're just battling on some kind of you know some kind of dirt bike or flat track bike. But if you want to get faster, you have to race, and being able to race your brother for all those years is, or brother or sister. I mean, we need obviously all genders in, but being able to race your sibling is just, it gives you an edge up, and I know that was huge for me. Certainly watching the Haydens come up, and I remember seeing Nicky the first time I ever met him was at a small short track in uh, Bellevue, Illinois. And I was like, man, this kid is fast. Like, he's 15. He was just keeping up with, he made the main event, which is insane. That was like a big purse race. And so everyone was there from, like Chris Carter, all the big names at the time. And to see this 15-year-old like in the show was just amazing. So yeah, I would say that it's not that he couldn't have got there or I couldn't have got there, but it sure gave us a leg up on it.
Looking back at those two Superbike championships that you finished second in, which one of those was your better year?
Oh, for sure, 2002, racing with Nicky. In 2001, we're still trying to get the bike sorted out, and the team was still semi-new, the Kawasaki team, kind of gelling. It really hadn't all coalesced yet. But in 2002, things were going really good. And unfortunately, we had a burnt out clutch in Daytona, which took us out of the race entirely. And then another mechanical somewhere in the middle of the season. And at the second to last race, which was at VIR, we had a pretty handy lead, I think, like a 7-second lead. The race is in the bag for me as far as I was concerned. And then the motor locked up. We lost the bottom end. So, I think if we could have put those three races back on the, kind of on the, well, it got points at those three races, it would have been, it could have been our championship, which would have been, huge, huge, huge to beat all the V twins at that time on the 750.
Back to talking about you and Ben. So early on, you guys raced twin sports together. I mentioned that at the top. I can't remember if that was the same team or not, but I know that you guys raced together with Honda, and then with Yamaha. But in between that, and correct me if I'm wrong on this stuff, but in between that, a lot of times you guys were on different teams. And I was thinking about this in 2005, I believe you were on a Ducati, and then in 2006, Ben was on a Ducati, but it wasn't the same team, I don't think. But how often was it a situation where, I remember Ben followed you onto the Yamaha team after you were already with them. Can you talk about that a little bit? How that whole situation with you two brothers was with being teammates, but also kind of being on separate teams, and you kind of end up following each other around a little bit through the paddock?
Yeah, we did it in both directions, really. It was in 2000, sorry, 1995 that I was racing with Bartels, and Ben was on the Bartels team at that time too, which was the first time we were ever like officially teammates together. And so we like traveled all over the country and box ran and hit all these Harley races, both flat track and road race. Um, and then he ended up on the Honda ride in 2007 on the zero gravity ride, which got me a ride. Thanks, Ben. And so we were teammates again. And then some really weird stuff happened with Honda, and Ben ended up winning the championship, but moving on to Ducati, and I ended up in Ben's place, which, I always, well, it is what it is, it's, the past. But, and and so there was like that time, I guess, where I was sort of following Ben's footsteps from, like their Gravity Honda to the factory Honda team. And then at some point it sort of turned around, and yeah, I raced Ducati on the Ducati for a couple of years, and then it was the same team. It was Austin Ducati, Parts Unlimited team, and so in 2005 it was Neil Hodgson and I, and then 2006 it was Ben and Neil. So that was a pretty
Right.
great team, but I think ultimately they were not on the most competitive equipment at that point. It was just racing at 1000cc, twin against 1000cc four cylinders was not the recipe for success at the time.
Boy, I'll tell you, we've gotten a lot of the fan questions, a lot of fan inquiries, and whenever we do the Throwback Thursday posts, and we have you in there on the ZX7, and you see like that RC51, and everybody's like, "How the heck could Ben have ridden a 750 against those 1000cc bikes?" Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Sean, if you get my name right,
Yeah, you
though,
called
come
him
on.
Ben.
Yeah.
Did I
No,
say that?
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, you did, but it's always a compliment. And I always joke that I would always love to wear Ben's shoes. Like, no matter where I'm at, like, it's just a good place to be. He has this way of sort of gliding on a magic carpet through things, and I, I, I'll, I'll take
I
that. I'll take that
apologize.
compliment.
I
um,
apologize, Eric Bostrom. Well, let me just say this again, and before you answer that question, now that you mentioned that, because I was going to say something about this later. During your career, a lot of people would wonder if you guys were fraternal twins or whatever, and they never really understood. And it's actually amazing how different the two of you guys are. You're both very contemplative and introspective in your own ways, but you definitely kind of march to different drummers, I guess. So we can talk. Maybe you can talk about that after. But yeah, for the first part, Eric Bostrom, please talk about when you were on a 750 against those thousands and how that was.
But it was a rad time for racing. I mean, there's just I say the golden era. There was so so much so much competition in the paddock, and the teams were pretty stacked with the ability to give us good equipment and put the money into it. So the Kawasaki was largely competitive because we had so many parts. Like, we could dial in the transmission for each track, like to, down to a kilometer. It was awesome. So the transmission itself would do a lot of the work getting us around the racetrack. And, and then the Cowie had a pretty good power plant, and the, the front end of the bike was really good. So you could like lean pretty heavy on those factors and kind of try to mitigate the issues with rear grip. The bike really never got the rear grip that we needed. And every time we tried to incorporate more grip and to get more chain force with mechanical grip, it just sort of made the bike, it turned the bike into a scissor. It sort of like, it was, always trying to pitch you off. So we were never able to get that drive grip that we needed to get fully competitive with like the newer generation motorcycles. But a lot of it just like, it was at a time where the tires would still go off, um, and that played into our hand because you could hammer really hard at the beginning and then try to hold on for dear life. And at that point, running out of horsepower wasn't quite a, it wasn't quite as big of a penalty. So I think there were a lot of factors that kept us competitive, but ultimately it was just a great team. Like, the team really, really put everything into making that motorcycle run at the front. And it really was a good development team. I think, I've been around, and there's some teams that like they literally just bolt parts onto the bikes and kind of go racing, and the Kawasaki team pushed hard to make that machine better. So that was just it was awesome to have that support.
Well, people look back at that and they're just in awe of that when they understand the whole thing. And was that bike truly a 750, or was that punched out to like an 850 or something? What was the situation on the displacement with that?
Yeah, in 2001 and 2, when we were runner up, it was 750, and then in 2003 when we were leading the championship, and then had that injury at Laguna Seca and World Superbike with the crash there in the first turn. That one was 8:38. So it was I don't know, it had a little more grunt, but the 750 was actually a better better machine, a little better package. But you can, you know, I think on the 750 I could turn the same lap time or maybe even better, but it was easier to race on the 838 with that little extra torque because you would end up, having the ability to make a move.
Talking about you and Ben, I mean, Ben's mellowness is sort of legendary, but you're not. You're right there. Who is actually like the more chill individual? I know that's like it's got to be a close contest, but sometimes I think it's you.
That's pretty funny. I wouldn't consider any Bostrom chill. I mean, we were, like my dad is pushing 80 and he still wants to beat all the kids, like with their national numbers. And we're out at the flat track and he's like, I think I got this guy. And I'm like, I think you do too, Dad. Like, you're good. I think there's too much kind of like fire. I don't know. I'd say like fire, and passion to be chill. I think we both have our own way of like getting away from it all, and whether it's like we can really simplify life, and I value that. We spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up, and I think that's a huge advantage to see the old world ways. And if Ben and I are like out together, it's like, hey, go riding bicycles, but maybe there's a backpack on. And we'll try to find some mushrooms or something in the forest. Not the hallucinogenic kind. That's fun.
Not the magic ones.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need the psilocybin, although it's all the rage these days. But I think we are somewhat spiritual in that way, so that's why we really like the rock climbing and surfing, kind of feeling that energy. But I wouldn't classify us as chill. I mean, Ben's the most competitive person I know, and I think that I'd like to have a little bit more of that competitive spirit that he has, but I think I got enough of it to make do.
Yeah, you did all right with it. Well, there's one story I have to tell because maybe chill wasn't the right word, but we talked to Ben about him and his missed flights and all that sort of stuff. But I remember one time, and I don't know what racetrack we were at, but we were staying at a Hampton Inn or whatever, one of these places that had, free breakfast in the morning. So I'm sitting there eating my cereal, and basically the room's cleaned out. The mechanics and everybody have left and gone to the track. They have to be there a little sooner. So I'm sitting there eating my cereal, and Eric walks in and sits down, and he's having his cereal or whatever. And then I get up to leave, and he's like, "Hey, Paul, are you onto the track?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Hey, you mind if I get a ride?" So in my mind, I'm thinking, how is this guy going to get to the track if it wasn't for me? So that's kind of what I mean by like chill. Like I would have been at the track like 6 hours ago in my leathers, and here you are eating breakfast with not even a ride to the track yet, but you knew you were going to figure it out and it would all be taken care of.
Now, there's an easy explanation for this, and it's the Bostrom curse. So this happened when we were kind of getting into racing, and I quickly realized that it really didn't matter how hard we tried to get to the track, which really wasn't hard enough in general because we were never there on time. The only people that were later to the track than us were the weights, because they were oftentimes well, I guess they were practicing religion, and so missing the whole script there, but that's okay. And so sometimes we were actually the second to last people to the track because they would get there later. But and so the crazy thing about this is if we left, we'd be going to Lodi Cycle Bowl, leaving San Francisco, and if practice started at 5 and we left at 2, which is more than enough time, we would get there late because something would go wrong. Like there'd be, some kind of tragedy on the freeway, or like, we'd have a blowout, and then if we left way too late, like if we left at 5 and you're thinking, okay, we're going to miss the heat races and everything else, the water truck at Lodi would break and we'd be fine. So I learned pretty early on that, like, you just don't fight the flow. Like, it's going to work out. And the curse will take you in the right direction. So you just got to ride out. You got to know your hand and ride it out.
Oh, that's good.
Hey, Eric, one of the things last week, Paul and I were on alone and we were talking about how weird it's going to be racing at MotoAmerica with no fans. And he had brought up about the year that they had a delay because of mist or whatever it was, fog at Laguna Seca, and Freddie Spencer won on a Monday. And I remembered the time that you were at Loudon, and as Loudon usually was, it would rain a lot. Well, this one year, I think it might have been 99. You can correct me on what year it was, 99, 2000, something like that. And there was so much rain that they couldn't run the race until Monday, and it was televised. But you won that race on Monday. Can you talk about that a little bit and refresh our memories?
Yeah, it was the last Loudon. It was 2001, and we never went back there after that. I enjoyed, kind of rallying around that racetrack, although it was a little dangerous, as we know. But, like, you put on your race face, and the fans make the racing. Like so yes, it was a little empty because without that energy, just getting to the starting line, you're like, oh, this is a little hollow, right? Like we're here to put on a show, but then once you put down your visor, you just go for it. And sure, the podium ceremony was a little hollow, but once the green flag dropped, like, the race was on, and of course you wouldn't have a worry in the world because you're just out there to beat up on all your pals. So it was a great day for the team. We should have probably had a double victory that weekend because we had the 600 race handily kind of, I think, in the bag too, and we didn't get a race that event. So I think it came with mixed emotions that we didn't get that. But racing, and I mean, there's no reason to race without fans, not at the professional level. And hopefully the idea here is that we get things rolling, and television package, and keep people interested in racing, so that when we do return to real racing with the fan support, that they will return with it.
Well said. Hey, of these 10 Superbike wins that you've had in your career, which one stands out the most? I mean, some people would say it's your first, but is that accurate with you, or is there one that's a little more special than the first one?
I'm going to point out that it's 15 because, and I wouldn't know this.
Oh, no,
but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So,
I'm sorry. No, there's 15. You're 10th on the list. My bad. I mixed up my numbers. You're absolutely right.
That's right.
Sorry.
I got to take a jab when
at
I
least
can.
I didn't call you Ben.
So, yeah, that's true. There's a few special ones in there, and the most obvious, it was kind of in '98, having really just raced Harleys, and then still really not understanding what I was doing on a road race bike, and then with Miguel getting injured at Loudon and jumping on his bike, and I was trying to sort of get this animal figured out. And it just all worked out at the perfect timing. Like, everyone kind of thought at the end of the race, like, wow, Eric, you really timed that right. Like, you came from kind of mid-pack, and then right in the last 2 laps, you put on this charge and just got everyone with their pants down. I'm laughing, thinking, no, I didn't. Like, I was just figuring out the motorcycle at the end of that 100K race. And if the race were 2 laps shorter, I wouldn't have won. And if it were 4 laps longer, I would have been long gone. Like, I was just coming. So the timing was so perfect on that. But to have that, like, I guess, thrust into, like, wow, I can do, anything, and win a superbike race. Although it was largely at that point the motorcycle. I don't think I did a very good job that day. And then kind of moving forward on that, I think, having some really special, I don't know, like the victories aren't always like the standouts, it's oftentimes some of those dogfights that you had, and they don't necessarily end up in a win, but they're still like some of the biggest efforts and the best races of your life. And I think that's where we grow. We grow as riders and humans that have that depth of talent to draw upon. But there's there's been a lot of really hard fought ones, and I think, kind of like some of those World Superbike races at Laguna Seca, where, like kind of trading blows, and on an underdog machine with all these 1,000 cc bikes that, like Colin Edwards and Troy Billis and my brother and Ruben and Neil riding it was just and Nori, I guess. It was like, that was a really special time. And did I win? No, but we showed up and we raced, and that was rad. So I think the 2002 Laguna Seca was one of my highlights in that regard.
Mm. We had a fan that reminded me of something that I always admired about you when you rode, and I seem to remember it mostly when you're on that Ducati. And I actually asked you one time, it's the fact that you were seemingly always able to get these amazing starts on the bikes. And I remember asking you one time, I'm sure you don't remember this, but I was like, you think you could, I think you might have even worked with Ricky Gadsden a little bit to get some starts when you were with Kawasaki. But I remember saying, do you think you could beat Ricky Gadsden off the line? And you just like laughed in my face and said, I'm sure I couldn't. And I'm like, oh, okay. I really thought, but tell us about that, Eric. You were known for your ability to start. Was that something you developed in your career?
Yeah, I think that developed from the dirt track, but I raced against a lot of dirt trackers, so maybe I just put a little bit more like energy into it. And then I think there's also my dad's words in the back of my head, which would go to Lodi, and it was and also like Fremont and San Jose, Newman, all these tracks, and they're gladiator pits, like if you didn't get a start, you probably weren't going to win. And so my dad would always say, look, if you put a lot of energy into the start, you're going to take a lot less risk, and there's a very good chance you'll win if you get the start. So hearing kind of those words of wisdom, my dad was really, really hands off. Like, he probably never gave me a single riding tip, but he always played it pretty safe. And that was probably one of his big pieces of safety wisdom, which is get a good start and let everything else shake out behind you.
Okay, you brought up the value of losing as well as winning, and what comes to mind with you, and one of what had to have been a really difficult loss was in that Superbike or the Supersport Championship at Willow Springs when Curtis passed you, on the last two corners, and that gave him the championship. Would that been your toughest loss?
Yeah, I think it was the toughest loss, but it wasn't like, Curtis and I always had some pretty clean, good racing, and Curtis wouldn't have, had that opportunity had Jamie Hacking not broadsided me in turn 8, which was like 160-mile-an-hour turn. He just ran smack into the side of my bike, um, which was which just, it pisses you off when you look back. You're like, like pretty pretty like you have a lot more races in your career, and here, like that, I guess it could be explained any other way, which is, sure, Jamie had said it's the last race of the season, I left the door open. I don't think I did at all, but I really nearly like just wadded the bike at, 6 gear wide open, and so that gave Curtis the opportunity. But yeah, there's some people you really liked racing against, like Curtis. I always enjoyed racing against him. And then there's some other people like, kind of like Jamie Hacking, Aaron Yates, which I never really had any good races against them. Like,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I even enjoyed racing against Matt. Matt was a total jerk, on and off the racetrack. But he like tried to intimidate everyone. But I really enjoyed racing him. Like he would race hard and close, but he would race clean, and that was rad.
You mentioned that Mladin, and I brings up. I always think of VIR and that checkered flag, which we've shown that photo on our Throwback Thursday. But can you talk about that race a little bit and that ending? And did you know that you won that race?
Yeah, I knew. I was watching my front wheel. It was, that race weekend was awesome. It was also kind of a nightmare because on Saturday we were winning the race going away, and then the bike broke, and any chance we had in the championship disappeared in that moment. And then that whole Sunday thing was just a total debacle, and it started off with like I mean I won that race 5 times that day, and each time got a little bit harder because the races kept getting shorter and the gap kept getting closer, and my margin of, I guess, lead kept narrowing up, and some of the red flags were obviously totally bogus. I mean, like when Nicky crashed and burnt his RC51 to the ground, that was real. Like, okay, I get it. But when Aaron Yates was making snow angels out in turn 3 on the
Yes,
racetrack, like that's
throwing
not when you red
rocks.
flag a, yeah, that's not when you red flag a race. So the final showdown, it actually ended up being a good thing because that's what the fans come for, right? Like, and that's what we show up to do. Like, you want to have a race and not just run away with it. And the final like 7 lap dash was was just enough to get Matt really excited that he could win the race. And we had like this total barn burner of a race to the end. And I just like got like that perfect drive at the last turn, because for a while there I was thinking, oh no, like I'm not where I need to be. And I just nailed the last like downhill section. I left him a little bit of a gap and then came down that hill and kind of put it all on the line. It was like, the bike moving around from curb to curb, but but I was able to get the power down. And uh, about the time we came by pit row entry, which is pretty early on the straightaway, I was like, I got this thing. Like, Bobby, you better get out of the way because I'm coming right for you. And I can't believe that he like stayed out there with the checkered flag. That would
Oh
be
yeah.
terrifying. You have, 2 superbikes coming at you 180 miles an hour, and like bar to bar. And there's Bobby, like waving the checkered flag. I couldn't believe that he stuck, that he didn't just like jump. I would have jumped to the other side of the pit wall.
Yeah, and for the fans, for the listeners who may not remember or know, Eric's talking about Bobby Lemming, our flagman at the time, who was a legendary flagman and was on the track for a fair amount of times in these things. I always wondered when he was down at Daytona, but in this particular photo, in this ending, he was so close right there. And I think we also have a photo, Eric, of you on the podium with Bobby handing the flag to you. So we knew he survived that moment, clearly.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe that might have been a little hard on the ticker, but he was cool. You were asking who was the coolest? Maybe Bobby Lemming. Like standing that close to these monstrous machines.
Okay, let's fast forward a little bit to let's fast forward all the way till now, since we don't have a ton of time left. Um, what's Eric Bostrom do now? I mean, obviously you're not racing anymore. I know you raced bicycles. I don't know if you're still doing that professionally or not, but I know that was a big part of your life after retirement. So fill us in a little bit on what's been going on with you and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Eric's been busy, man. It's the bicycle has been great to kind of fill that competitive void, and it's true I haven't been doing too many races lately. Been doing a little bit of a ambassador program for Giant and the e-bicycles, and so I was able to join Tom Hicks down at his shop there for the Giant launch, and that's cool. Long Beach, at the show, we were all hanging out. It's just cool to reconnect with the motorcycle community in kind of in that direction. I've been doing a lot of stuff, well, coaching with Fast Track with Jeremy Toy, Jake Dempsey, Chris Ulrich, and a few others, which has been really cool to try to give back, because most people think you kind of got to try harder to go faster, and it really couldn't be farther from the truth. You just have to know what you're asking and then ask correctly. And so I think we can, like, in the coaching thing, we've really been trying to teach riders how to, reach for their goals without extending their risk factor on the bikes, which will keep them coming back to the track. And I think I've noticed a huge difference out there at Auto Club, Fast Track riders, with the kind of level of general level of riding skills. So that's been rad. And out of that started kind of a high performance riding camp in Temecula on KLX 140s that I've been hosting intermittently. And it's like, it's kind of like Danny Walker's super camp. We just go out there and like bash around, but it's a very like road race centric instruction on why, what signs you're looking from the motorcycle to how to apply braking, and just, if more or less, riding efficiency. And then my big thing has been on the health and wellness side of things with the launch of my brand Backmate. And kind of a like little bit of backstory is I didn't realize what retired me from racing, and it became more and more clear that just riding the bike was not fun, but it was from the side of pain, right? I really struggled in that position with neck pain from compressing my cervical spine, and having like tried, like, that sort of, let's say, extreme left path of medication, and then that extreme right path of surgery. And I was like, man, the medication, I'm just numbing the symptom. I've tried it, it's not working. And then, I don't want to do surgery, but the center path is like, I don't have enough time to be at like PT every day during the week. And so I need to figure this out. And out of that came my brand Backmate, which is kind of a philosophy on taking care of your body and understanding that chronic pain comes from repetition and our daily routine. So it's been really neat. We launched on Kickstarter last year at this time, and since then I've delivered almost I think we've delivered about 2,500 Backmates across the world, and I've had like really cool feedback. I mean, like like words like, "This thing's game changer," and just like really sincere comments from people that I've never met before that don't know anything about motorcycles. But the Kickstarter thing was really successful because of the motorcycle community. I had so many people like kind of reach out and say hi and back us on Kickstarter. And I really think they got like a kick-ass product or a kick-ass deal, because it was $99 on there, and it's like this beautiful piece of stainless steel, super robust and really versatile for all these different modalities of therapy. And what I've found is that, had I been on to this, I don't think I would have left the sport in 2008. It was just taking care of the headaches and the spasms and discomfort issues that I had at that time would have been easily kind of manageable had I been able to kind of work on my nervous system. And the Backmate kind of thing is a very simple philosophy, which is we need, to take care of our bodies. And with that, the nervous system and brain being at the top, we need to be able to have this conversation with them. And by doing the different therapies with massage and trigger point, we can calm the nervous system, which then teaches the brain to have a different conversation with the feedback that it's giving, the neuromuscular feedback, and then with that, the signals change in the body gives into a restorative state, and you actually start recovering. the body recovers pretty quickly, but the problem is we always get in the way. And medication is a great example. I mean, all medication really slows the body's natural healing process. So it's sort of like this push to get everyone to empty their medicine cabinets and stop following a symptom and actually address the problem with therapy, as opposed to like numbing that symptom, which is so frustrating. But it is the way our society does it. So I'm on a big mission, lifelong mission. I couldn't be happier where I'm at, to try to get people from taking the path that I took, which ultimately probably ended my career.
Eric, can you explain what the device actually is? I've seen pictures of it, and can you explain what it is and how it was developed? Who created it?
Yeah, it was. So it's an expandable bar. If you know what that is, like just a bar that expands into a doorway. And once it's in your doorway, you can do the different therapy modalities by leaning into it or pushing against it in a variety of different ways, because it, Dustin, my partner, who I grew up together with, and also a motorcycle enthusiast, he broke his back when we were kids, and so we've kind of always had these conversations. And we're on a dirt ride, and I had built this sort of Franken contraption, and he was telling me how well it was working for him. So we decided to like go forward and actually make the thing really good. And so Dustin added in like these a different rotation axes. Once it's in your doorway, it can rotate 180 degrees, and then the head has 4 different positions, which rotates as well. And then we have different wheel sets. So the wheel sets, you can more or less adjust the amount of pressure that you want to use. And of course, you can adjust the amount of pressure by how hard you lean into it. But once, like, if you have like like perfect example, like people have headaches and they go to Tylenol. 90% of headaches come from the neck. And with the backmate, you can get, or really with maybe any, like your hand or anybody's hands that knows what they're doing, you can get rid of a headache within usually a minute with a small amount of knowledge and a little bit of therapy and touch on the neck. So the backmate allows you to do that yourself. And the same can be said, like if you're having numbness in your hands because you're typing on the computer, it's very easy to address that with some different therapy and in the trap and the back along the paraspinal. So it's like this really, I guess, how am I doing on explain this? Really versatile device. Fits anywhere in the doorway. So if you're a runner and you want to do your calves, like I've not found anything to beat it yet. And then obviously addressing low back pain in the working in the hips and the glute medius minimus. Pretty quick and easy ways to address a lot of different pains. And I think the bigger mission is, how can we put this information in an easily digestible way? So if somebody is having a symptom, we can direct them to the problem and give them an easy way to address it without having to become a doctorate of physical therapy to understand what's happening with their body.
And that's go to mybackmate.com, I think. Is that right, Eric, to look into it?
Yeah, that's right. We have a bunch of instructional videos on YouTube at My Backmate as well on our channel. So ton of information there, and we're continually building. We have some blogs that will give you, like on the mybackmate.com site, will give some pretty good insight to pain. But ultimately, like, many of us, especially motorcycle enthusiasts, are aging, and we can fight back. I think, my dad's a great example of, being nearly 80 now and definitely one of the fastest guys when we go flat tracking anywhere we go.
Wow.
But the reason he's programmed the way he is because of his mobility. Like he's in good shape. He cares about his health. And so by doing these different therapy modalities, we can keep our mobility. And then of course add in those other pillars, which is like rest and stress and, BMI, right? With our general health and diet. So, that's sort of like the next thing for Backmate. We want to get a little bit more into disseminated information about diet and how we can improve our rest and basic health, overall health strategy. So it's a work in progress, but it's been really fun. We have some new products coming out in the next 3 or 4 months, and then another Kickstarter launch in 2021. So we're sort of at we're at the early stages of trying to make something really good to give people alternatives to I should say alternatives from traditional medicine, and just a natural approach to healing the body, and also that know-how of like, whoa, this has happened and I know what to do. And it's so magical to know that you have this ability to heal your body, because ultimately our bodies heal from the inside out. Anytime we go and put something into them, whether it's surgery or medication, the body's rejecting that. And so we just want to augment the body's ability to relax so it can actually do what it knows how to do. So that, I guess on that is, I have this theory, I think the easiest way to think about it is we all know about working out, but it's really important to work in too, right? And that's sort of that recovery phase. So if somebody says, Eric, how do I get better? How do I get better on the bike? It's like, well, end your workout 5 minutes sooner and make sure you add some recovery into your workout to keep your mobility and muscles flaccid and improve your mobility. That's how you're actually going to be stronger. That's how you're going to move quicker on the bike and move forward.
That's great advice. Man, I got about 15 other things I wanted to ask you about, but we're kind of out of time here. But one thing I wanted to touch on is we just announced that we are the date for the round at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. It's going to be our ninth round of the 10-round season. It's moving to October 23rd to 25th. And the reason I bring it up on this is when we had Ben on, and I know I was talking to Ben before, and I do know, Eric, that you are Eric. So Ben told us that he's been trying to talk you into riding in this King of the Baggers Invitational, which is going to be at that round on October 23rd to 25th. And so how about another announcement out of you? Are you riding in that King of the Baggers, and which team are you riding for?
Well, if there's an opportunity to kick Ben's ass, you can count me in. So I'll as long as I'm on the same equipment, I'll probably be on the same team he's on, which I don't know who that is.
Well, that's good. That's something to look forward to. Hey, Sean, you know how you called Eric Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you just called.
I'll never live it down.
You just called Laguna Seca Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca when it's actually WeatherTech. So you're in trouble all around.
I think it's the COVID thing. I think I got COVID brain or something. You're right. It's WeatherTech Raceway. Oh my God. Oh boy.
Well, look, you guys. Let's
October 20th.
You got the date right.
Jeez.
I'm happy that we can end on giving each other a hard time. I miss you guys. It's gonna be cool to see you all at the racetrack, and make sure you cheer for me, not Ben. Okay?
Yeah, it's been,
yes, exactly.
It's been good chatting with you again, and it's nice to see that your life has turned out as well as it has, and you seem like a happy young man. So that's good for everybody, and we do look forward to seeing you at Laguna Seca. And I'll pull for you against Ben. How's that? Maybe Sean can pull for Ben and I pull for Eric, and then that way it's kind of fair.
Sean's going to pull for Ben twice. He's going to be like, go Ben! Go Ben!
Ben won even when it was there. Oh, God. Terrible.
Okay, you guys.
Hey, I just want to get into for everybody. Just, thanks to the fans for listening to our podcast. Please subscribe to MotoAmerica Live Plus, our popular subscription streaming service, easy for me to say. And also, don't forget to get your race weekend tickets. Go to motoamerica.com/buy for complete details, because our season is starting, a 10-round series, and it's next weekend without fans. But after that, bring on the fans and see Eric Bostrom ride a bagger down through the corkscrew. How can you beat that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
Awesome, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.